My name's Marianne Richards. A lot of you think you know who I am, but you don't, which is why I decided to make this brief video. You can find all the information you need in the book I sent you, which is called Evil Psychologist in a Culture of Denial, and is the text of a report I sent to the senior president of tribunals in 2020 alongside evidence documents. I didn't print the evidence documents because it would have made the cost of the book far too expensive, and I meant the book to be for investigative officers and also for people who are whistleblowers like me, to show them why people should not whistleblow under the current conditions. So first of all, I'm Marianne Richards. I'm 70 this year, and I lost my career nearly 20 years ago, and I'm still struggling to get over it. I've never recovered financially or emotionally. When I was 10 years old, I was studying a lot of things: archaeology, ecology, gardening, science, ancient history, paleontology. When I was 10 years old, I had an article published in the local newspaper on ancient mythology. It's Greek mythology, actually. So maybe that gives you a little bit of an idea that I am autistic, a fact which was denied both by Bevan Britton, by Anya Palmer, the barrister in court, and by AWP seniors. That's because you never bothered to look at the medical evidence which is in the records of Avon and Wiltshire Mental Health Trust. I'll give you a little background. I'm not going to go into my life history because, frankly, I don't want to share it with people like you. I'd had a 20-year career in mental health before I came to Avon and Wiltshire Mental Health Trust. That was both in private practice and in 2 other health trusts. I really enjoyed that subject, and I'd made it the subject I wanted to study deeply, what people called autistic special interests. That was mine. Although you might not think it, I was actually very good with patients and can prove that. It's in the records, it's in the fat file of testimonials that I gave to AWP's Dr. Jerome years ago, and obviously those were hidden alongside my video of myself presenting at university. So I came to Avon and Wiltshire Mental Health Trust. I started working in LD and surgery, which was already highly dysfunctional. And again, the evidence of that is already in AWP files. I decided to do the right thing, to do something about it, and I reported it to Dr. Howells at AWP. She did nothing though, as she'd done nothing for the 2 years prior to that. Then she started bullying me. I didn't realise what she was doing at first, but finally I went to HR and they told me they weren't going to do anything because she was their best manager. And of course they told her. And as soon as they told her, of course, she started making my life hell and making all sorts of false accusations, which are again covered in the book alongside evidence that I didn't do these things. But as soon as I proved one was untrue, she began ranting about something else. And so it went on for a year or so, during which time I was getting more and more depressed. And again, that's in the medical records at AWP. So eventually I walked out on doctor's advice. And it was after that that these, I don't know what to call them really, plots I suppose one would call them, began to blame me for all the chaos that was existing in AWP long before I joined them. and for all I know exists to this day. All I know is that LD and surgery were under special measures at CQC for years, and AWP, I believe, are still under scrutiny. One of the officers, I won't tell you who, said to me that AWP were very slow to learn. I could tell you why that is. They will never learn because they brush stories like mine under the carpet, try to silence me, try to silence other whistleblowers. In fact, there were 4 of us whistleblowers and none of us were believed. And then, because I was in a bad financial position, I just had to take them to tribunal because they'd blocked every avenue of my getting a professional post. And then they called in their legal team. It wasn't Bevan's at that time, it was another legal team, but Bevan's acted much the same. They don't perceive their job, you see, as finding out the truth or getting justice. They just see it as winning for their clients in any way they can see possible, which is where the system fails again. For 12 years, their barrister, Anya Palmer, kept me from getting a hearing at a tribunal. At the last one in 2017, I was praised by the judge for my courage and fortitude, and he was very angry with the barrister. It was something to do with evidence that was missing, something to do with Christopher Stancliffe, who was probably the main perpetrator of the hiding of documents. But they wouldn't tell me why it is, and that haunts me to this day. However, that meant my court access to justice had been blocked by Bevan's, whose barristers and solicitors have earned hundreds of thousands over the years through beating me up and beating up other people like me. I'm sorry to put it that way, but that's the truth of the matter. Remember, all this began with my whistleblowing, and that's ignored. That was completely ignored by AWP. The focus became upon me, how I was the problem, how I'd caused all the problems. In fact, I remember going to a meeting about 5 years afterwards with their medical director. I thought, oh, they'll sort it out now. They'll apologise to me and thank me for blowing the whistle. And what she said was, don't you feel guilty? And I was so shocked I ran out of the building. There was a secretary there taking notes, but I very much doubt that the notes were taken about that. But as to the rest of the story, you can find it in evidence in that book if you can be bothered to read it. So after all the different agencies I went to, PALS, HPC, each time I went to an agency, Dr. Booth and Christopher Stancliffe and Bill Jerome would write in support of Dr. Howells, lauding her and denigrating me and saying I was a great problem, which of course I wasn't. Not in that sense, only in the sense that I love justice and I'm a whistleblower, and when I blow the whistle, I tell everything because I can't do anything else. My autism demands it. So I went to all these people, to HBC and CQC, all these different departments, and they couldn't understand it because they hadn't read the evidence, basically. They couldn't believe that someone who was an OBE and an upstanding psychologist could do any of these things. And there you have the answers to people why Jimmy Savile and Allet and all the others can get away with it. All they've got to do is present themselves as professionals and they'll always be believed because these people are naive. People like CQC officers. So CQC, they said they were undertaking an investigation, but it would be weeks and weeks and I'd never hear anything. So I'd email them and then I'd never get a reply. So I'd be worried. So I'd send another email and get no reply. So I'd be even more worried. So I'd send another email, an even longer one, thinking I hadn't explained it properly. And then, of course, at the other end, they'd see me as difficult and a troublemaker and someone who, as Dr. Jerome said, is persistent and rude, which is often said about autistic people. And if you bothered to call in the experts, they would have told you that. But no, that was just me trying to get the truth, trying to be heard. So, what's happening now? CQC have their final attempt, thanks to Josephine Buckle. And I must say, Josephine comes out of this much better than most of you, with all your qualifications and all your experience. And all what I say is probably very much narrow-mindedness and judgmental decisions you make without having evidence, just on assumptions. Because I'm working class, because my father worked in a factory and my grandfather worked down the mine, that I'm somehow a lesser person, and that I go to football matches. And yes, I did go to football matches, but it didn't mean I went to football matches to make trouble or throw knives around or fight and shout. I was shouting and I was singing for my team. You go there for enjoyment, but you wouldn't see it that way, would you? Do you see what I mean? Narrow-mindedness, perceptions of people, class perceptions, snobbery, really, isn't it? And as well as CQC, at the same time, I tried to go to Bevan's. I went to different people. I even went to their ethics officer, David. And he said he'd read all the documents. And he said much the same as the others. Oh, you're deliberately trying to disrupt us. Well, if you think about it, it's a bit stupid, isn't it? What purpose could I possibly have in deliberately disrupting a team of solicitors and legal people? It doesn't make sense, does it? You see, again, they think they know things, or rather you think you know things, but you don't. You just assume things. You all ought to be taught police methods. What's the motivation of this person? And also the police are taught never to look on what seems to be the case. Because someone's done X, it doesn't mean they'll do Y, or even do X again. Or why did they do X? If I got angry and wrote that someone was a cunt, it's because I didn't have the language. I didn't have the language because I was in a state of clinical depression to describe a sociopath. I know what a sociopath is now. Do you? You should have looked it up. Elizabeth Howells was acting like a sociopath, and the evidence is all there, but you never bothered to look at it. So basically, you can really say, because I came a whistleblower, I was bullied twice. Then I was victimized. I was victimized, first of all, by AWP. Then I was victimised by HPC. Then I was victimised by Bevan's. Then I was victimised by CQC. And then I was victimised by NHS Improvement. It's what they call victim blaming now. There's a nice word for you. Victim blaming. So here I sit now, and where am I? I've lost my home. I've never been able to get my home back again. I've lost my reputation, which means a huge amount to me. I lost my career in mental health, which I'd spent over 20 years working for. And I'd spent 5 years from age 54 getting a master's degree in mental health practice. The government paid for that. But thanks to all of you, I can't use it now. This is the only way I can use it, to try and make things better. Because despite all that's gone on, that's what I want to do, to make things better. And if you read my book, I've got suggestions about that. I'm not going to repeat them, because if you can't be bothered to read the book, then really I should say you're working in the wrong job. You're working for gain, and you're not working for the right purposes. Another word for that is morality or justice. These are words that people decry these days. But there's something some people believe in, whistleblowers like me. So, the upshot, 4 of us whistleblowers at AWP, one of whom has now died, never got justice. All the evidence was there all along, and it still is. If you look at Mr. Marsh's attendance notes and his letters to Andrew Mitchell, you'll see it all there. But obviously it's suppressed by someone. I don't know who that is, which is why I said Bevans are dishonest, because it was their job to find out. But rather than finding out and reading the evidence, what they did was win for their clients. And that's why I said that this system just doesn't work. The way it's set up doesn't work. I've given you a new system, a new idea for how it will work, and I haven't even cut them out. If you have a look at it, I've made sure that all the parties involved would still be involved, but on the same side, not working on different sides, and best of all, not blaming whistleblowers. So what I suggest is that you actually read that book. You really bother to read it. If you want the evidence, it's there, it's all filed. I don't intend getting it all out again. I've got it here, I've got over 1,000 documents in my database. It's a searchable, good database because I'm autistic and I'm good at things like that. And I shall keep it, and I shall keep my website until the day that we get justice. Justice for myself and all the others, and especially for Helen, who's died, and to whom I dedicate this. Thank you.